Let me ask you something. Two people, same genes, same family history, same genetic mutations that doctors say raise cancer risk. One of them develops an aggressive, life-threatening cancer. The other lives to 90 without ever hearing the word oncologist. What is the difference? Most doctors will shrug and say, luck. But after nearly 15 years working in emergency medicine and sitting with oncology patients, I think the answer is something far more specific, far more actionable, and it has everything to do with what they ate. Now I know what you are thinking. We have all heard the vague advice, eat more vegetables, avoid processed food. But that is not what I am talking about today. I am talking about specific foods, specific amounts, and specific mechanisms that have been tested in the same laboratories used to develop cancer drugs. Foods that can literally cut off a tumor's blood supply. Foods that repair broken strands of your DNA. Foods that prime your immune system to hunt and destroy cancer cells before they ever become a problem. If that sounds dramatic, stay with me, because the science behind this is some of the most fascinating research I have ever come across, and almost nobody is talking about it in clinical practice. Before we get into the foods, I need to explain something that is going to completely change how you think about cancer. And honestly, once you understand this, you will never look at your plate the same way again. Here's the thing most people do not know. You have cancer cells in your body right now. So do I. So does everyone reading this. That is not a horror story. That is just biology. You have roughly 40 trillion cells in your body, and they are constantly dividing to replace old, worn out. Every time a cell divides, it copies its DNA. And just like photocopying a document thousands of times, eventually you get errors. Those errors create abnormal cells. Some of those abnormal cells are technically cancerous. And right now, you probably have dozens of microscopic clusters of them sitting somewhere in your body. So why are you not sick? Why are most of us not dying of cancer right now? Because your body already has a defense system designed specifically for this. Your immune system is constantly patrolling, finding these tiny clusters and wiping them out before they ever become dangerous. Think of it like a security team running 24/7, quietly doing its job while you go about your day. But here is where it gets critical. Even when a cancer cell slips past your immune system, it still cannot hurt you unless it solves one very specific problem. It needs food. It needs oxygen. It needs nutrients to grow. And to get all of those things, it needs blood vessels. Without blood vessels, a tumor is completely trapped. It cannot grow bigger than the tip of a ballpoint pen. It can sit there for years, even decades, totally harmless, frozen in place. But the moment it gets a blood supply, everything changes. This process, the growth of new blood vessels into a tumor, is called angiogenesis. And understanding it is the key to understanding how food can fight cancer. Your body normally controls angiogenesis very carefully, like a thermostat keeping the temperature just right. Too few blood vessels, and your tissues starve. Too many, and you get dangerous complications like the abnormal vessels that cause diabetic blindness. It is a constant, precise balance. Cancer hijacks that balance. Tumor cells release proteins called growth factors that essentially trick your body into building new blood vessels straight into the tumor. Once that happens, the growth rate is almost impossible to believe. A study from Harvard Medical School tracked using advanced imaging and found that once blood vessels reach a tumor, it can grow 16,000 times larger in approximately 14 days. Not weeks, not months, 14 days. A dot the size of a pinpoint becomes the size of a grape in 2 weeks. That is what we are trying to prevent. For years, pharmaceutical companies have poured billions of dollars into drugs that block tumor angiogenesis. These drugs work by cutting off the blood supply to tumors and starving them. They are now standard treatments for many cancers, but they come with serious side effects because they affect blood vessel growth everywhere in your body, not just at the tumor. Here is where my perspective shifted completely. When scientists were testing these angiogenesis-blocking drugs in the lab, someone decided to run the same tests on extracts from common foods. One of the first they tested was green tea. The results stopped them in their tracks. The polyphenols in green tea, particularly a compound called EGCG, were as effective at blocking abnormal blood vessel growth as some experimental cancer drugs. One researcher said that if they had not known it came from a plant, they would have immediately moved it into clinical trials, and green tea was just the beginning. When researchers systematically tested foods using the same rigorous methods as drug development, they found that over 100 different foods have measurable anti-angiogenic properties. 100 foods that can slow or stop the growth of blood vessels feeding tumors. This is not folk medicine. This is measured in controlled laboratory assays, where you can directly observe blood vessel growth being blocked by compounds extracted from everyday food. Now let us talk about the second way food fights cancer, and I would argue this one is even more important for long-term protection. Every single day, your DNA takes damage. Ultraviolet radiation from the sun, chemicals in processed food, environmental pollutants. Even the normal process of breathing and metabolism creates what are called free radicals that break DNA strands. Your cells have repair crews that fix this damage around the clock. But those repair crews need specific nutrients to do their job. Without the right nutritional support, damage accumulates, mutations build up, and over time, the road from healthy cell to cancer cell gets shorter. The research that opened my eyes to this came from an unlikely source: kiwi fruit. I know, not exactly the dramatic superfood reveal you were expecting, but the evidence is genuinely remarkable. A study from the University of Oslo recruited 43 healthy adults and had them eat 1, 2, or 3 kiwis per day for 3 weeks. Then they measured DNA damage in their cells using something called the COMET assay, a technique that literally lets you see broken DNA strands under a microscope. They look like comets with tails, hence the name. The people eating just 1 kiwi per day showed 60% less DNA damage compared to where they started. 1 piece of fruit, 60% reduction. But the group eating 3 kiwis daily showed something even more striking. Not only was new damage being prevented, but existing damage was being repaired. Their cells showed a 60% improvement in DNA repair capacity. Their bodies were not just defending, they were fixing what had already been broken. That is the power of giving your body the right tools. Now I want to make sure you are subscribed before we go further, because what I am about to share, the specific foods, exact amounts, and how to combine them for maximum effect, is the kind of information that should honestly be standard in every doctor's office. Hit subscribe and make sure you do not miss the rest of this. Let me walk you through the anti-cancer pathways that food activates, and then I will give you the exact protocol. The first pathway is anti-angiogenesis. Foods containing certain polyphenols and flavonoids can block the signals that tumors send out to recruit new blood vessels. When a tumor releases VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, essentially a chemical distress signal saying, "Send blood vessels over here," certain food compounds intercept that signal and block its receptor. The tumor shouts, and nothing answers. The second pathway is direct immune activation. Your immune system has specialized cells called natural killer cells and T cells. These are the hunters. They identify and destroy cancer cells. And certain foods can dramatically increase both the number of these cells and how aggressively they work. A study from the University of Auckland measured immune cell counts in athletes before and after adding blueberries to their diet. Athletes make for interesting research subjects because intense exercise temporarily suppresses the immune system, making it easier to detect dietary effects. After consuming 1.5 cups of blueberries daily for 6 weeks, the athletes had 88% more T cells circulating in their blood. 88%. And their natural killer cell activity was significantly elevated as well. The active compounds responsible are anthocyanins, the pigments that make blueberries blue, and they function as powerful immune stimulators. The third pathway is one of the most cutting-edge areas in cancer research right now. It is the connection between your gut microbiome and your immune system's ability to fight cancer. Your gut contains trillions of bacteria, and we now know that specific species directly influence how effectively your immune system detects and destroys cancer cells. One bacterium in particular, called Akkermansia muciniphila, has emerged as a critical player. Researchers at the Gustave Roussy Cancer Center in France studied 200 cancer patients receiving immunotherapy. Immunotherapy is a treatment that essentially teaches your immune system to recognize and attack cancer. For some patients, it is transformative, eliminating even advanced metastatic cancer. For others, it does nothing at all. The researchers wanted to understand why. After analyzing stool samples from all 200 patients, they found one single factor that consistently separated those who responded well from those who did not: the presence of Akkermansia bacteria in the gut. Patients with high levels of this bacteria responded dramatically to immunotherapy. Patients without it largely did not respond. This one microorganism was essentially the gatekeeper, determining whether the treatment worked. Now here is the exciting part. You can feed this bacteria. Specific foods dramatically increase Akkermansia levels. And I will tell you exactly which ones in just a moment. First, if you're finding this valuable, please share it with someone you care about. This is the kind of information that changes how people approach their health. Most people have never heard any of this, and yet the research has existed for decades. Now, let us get into the exact foods and the precise amounts you need. Food number 1 is kiwi fruit. Eat 1 to 3 kiwis every day. If you have no particular risk factors and are eating these for general protection, 1 kiwi daily is sufficient. If you have a family history of cancer, known genetic risk factors, or you are recovering from cancer, aim for 3 per day. That is where the research shows the maximum benefit for DNA repair. You can eat them with the skin on if they are organic and well washed. The skin contains extra fiber and polyphenols. If the texture puts you off, golden kiwis have smooth skin and identical benefits. Slice them in half and scoop the flesh. Add them to yogurt, or blend them into a morning smoothie. Food number 2 is green tea, and you need 3 cups daily. Not the bottled stuff from a convenience store that contains minimal active compounds and usually a surprising amount of added sugar. Actual brewed green tea from loose leaves or quality bags. The active compound, EGCG, is what inhibits tumor angiogenesis and directly suppresses cancer cell activity. A study from the Chinese University of Hong Kong followed 68,000 women for over 10 years and found that those who drank green tea at least 3 times per week had a 27% lower risk of colorectal cancer. Daily drinkers did even better. To brew it properly, heat your water to around 175 degrees Fahrenheit. That is steaming, but not boiling. If you do boil it, let it cool for 3 minutes before steeping. Steep for 3 to 5 minutes. Here is a tip almost nobody knows. Adding a squeeze of lemon juice increases EGCG absorption by about 6 times. The vitamin C stabilizes the catechins so they survive your digestive system instead of breaking down before they can be absorbed. Do not add cow's milk. The proteins bind to the beneficial compounds and block absorption entirely. If you want to soften the taste, a splash of almond or oat milk works perfectly. Food number 3 is blueberries, and 1 cup every day is the target. Fresh or frozen both work. Frozen berries are sometimes even higher in anthocyanins because they are picked at peak ripeness and immediately frozen, locking in the compounds. Here is something that surprises most people. The anthocyanins in blueberries do 2 seemingly contradictory things simultaneously. They reduce the chronic inflammation that promotes cancer growth, while also ramping up immune activity against cancer cells. Reducing harmful inflammation while increasing beneficial immune response at the same time. That is a remarkable and rare combination. A study from the University of East Anglia followed nearly 200,000 people for over 20 years and found that those with the highest intake of anthocyanin-rich foods had a 17% lower overall cancer risk. For esophageal and colorectal cancers specifically, the reduction was as high as 40%. Food number 4 is going to raise some eyebrows because it has been unfairly demonized for years. Soy foods. Tofu, tempeh, edamame, soy milk. Aim for at least 2 servings per week, ideally 1 serving every other day. There is a widely repeated myth that soy is dangerous because it contains phytoestrogens, plant compounds that supposedly mimic human estrogen and therefore fuel hormone-related cancers. This myth has been thoroughly dismantled by research. Phytoestrogens do not look like human estrogen at the molecular level. They actually block estrogen receptors, which is protective against breast cancer, not harmful. The key compound in soy is called genistein, and it is one of the most potent anti-angiogenic substances ever tested in a laboratory. Research from the University of Illinois found that genistein inhibited VEGF signaling, the key signal tumors use to grow blood vessels, by over 70%. A meta-analysis pulling together data from 35 separate studies found that women who consumed the most soy had a 29% lower risk of breast cancer. Women who had already been diagnosed with breast cancer and consumed high amounts of soy showed better outcomes and lower recurrence rates. The populations in Asia who have eaten soy as a dietary staple for generations have consistently lower rates of breast and prostate cancer than Western populations. That is not coincidence. Food number 5 is broccoli. But here's the detail that makes an enormous difference. Broccoli sprouts, the 3 to 4 day old seedlings, contain 100 times more of the key active compound than mature broccoli. That compound is called sulforaphane, and it activates your body's detoxification systems while also directly suppressing cancer cell activity. A study from Johns Hopkins University found that a small handful of broccoli sprouts delivers as much sulforaphane as several pounds of the full-grown vegetable. You can find sprouts in the produce section of most grocery stores, near other sprouts and microgreens. Or you can grow them yourself at home in a jar in about 4 days using seeds from any health food store. Eat a quarter cup 3 to 4 times per week. If sprouts are not available, eat mature broccoli, but focus on the stems rather than the florets. The stems contain roughly twice the sulforaphane. Do not throw them out. Chop them finely and add them to stir-fries or soups. One important preparation note: lightly steaming broccoli for 3 to 4 minutes actually increases sulforaphane absorption compared to eating it raw, but boiling destroys it almost completely. Steam it. Never boil it. Food number 6 is cooked tomatoes. The active compound is lycopene, the carotenoid that gives tomatoes their red color, and it has both powerful anti-angiogenic properties and direct DNA protective effects. Here is the counterintuitive part. Cooking tomatoes dramatically increases how much lycopene your body can actually absorb. When you eat a raw tomato, you absorb a relatively small fraction of the lycopene it contains. When you cook it, heat breaks down the cell walls and converts lycopene into a form your body absorbs far more efficiently. Tomato sauce, tomato paste, and roasted tomatoes all deliver significantly more bioavailable lycopene than fresh tomatoes do. A landmark Harvard study following over 47,000 men for 12 years found that those who consumed tomato products at least twice a week had a 23% lower risk of prostate cancer. Men who ate 10 or more servings per week showed up to a 35% reduction in risk. Aim for 3 servings per week. A serving is half a cup of tomato sauce, a quarter cup of tomato paste, or 1 cup of cooked tomatoes. Always add olive oil when cooking tomatoes, because lycopene is fat-soluble, and absorption increases significantly in the presence of healthy fats. Food number 7 is pomegranate, and 4 ounces of pure juice daily, or half a fresh pomegranate, is the target. Pomegranates contain compounds called elagitannins, which your gut bacteria convert into a substance called urolithin A. Urolithin A has remarkable effects on cellular health and immune function. But what makes pomegranate especially powerful in the context of cancer is this. It is one of the best-known foods for feeding Akkermansia, that bacteria I mentioned earlier that determines whether immunotherapy works. A clinical case I became aware of involved a patient with multiple myeloma preparing to start immunotherapy. She had recently taken a course of antibiotics for a respiratory infection, and the antibiotics had essentially wiped out her Akkermansia bacteria. Her oncologist made the decision to delay treatment for 3 weeks and had her consume 8 ounces of pomegranate juice daily during that time. After 3 weeks, her Akkermansia levels were 6 times higher than the normal population average. When she started immunotherapy, she responded in the top 1% of all patients with her diagnosis. Her cancer essentially disappeared after 3 treatments. Now, that is a single clinical case, and I always want to be clear about the difference between one case and a controlled study. But it illustrates something profound about the relationship between the microbiome, nutrition, and treatment outcomes. For everyday prevention, 4 ounces of pure pomegranate juice with no added sugar, or half a fresh pomegranate, is enough to consistently support Akkermansia growth. You can also get the same elagitannins from walnuts, raspberries, and cranberries. So rotating between these foods keeps things interesting while maintaining the benefit. Now, let me give you the pro tips that make all of this more effective, because the how matters just as much as the what. Timing is more important than most people realize. Your immune system and DNA repair mechanisms are most active during sleep. That means eating your DNA protective foods, kiwi, berries, and pomegranate, earlier in the day gives your body time to absorb and distribute those nutrients before your repair systems kick into high gear overnight. Save your anti-angiogenic foods, particularly green tea and soy, for afternoon and evening. And try not to eat heavy meals within 3 hours of bedtime. Active digestion pulls resources away from cellular repair and immune surveillance. The synergy between foods multiplies their individual effects in ways that are hard to overstate. Green tea with lemon gives you 6 times more EGCG absorption than green tea alone. Tomatoes cooked with olive oil give you 3 times more lycopene than tomatoes without fat. Kiwi with iron-rich plant foods enhances iron absorption dramatically. A morning smoothie with blueberries, kiwi, and a handful of spinach delivers anthocyanins, vitamin C, and sulforaphane all in one go. An evening meal with baked tofu, steamed broccoli, and tomato sauce gives you genistein, sulforaphane, and lycopene working together. When you start thinking about combinations, the impact compounds. Consistency is more valuable than intensity. 1 cup of blueberries every day for a month is far more effective than 7 cups in one sitting once a week. Your body's protective systems, the immune surveillance, the DNA repair, the angiogenesis regulation, all of them respond to steady, consistent input. Think of it like maintaining a fire. Steady, regular fuel keeps it burning reliably. Throwing on a huge pile of wood once a week gives you a brief flare-up and then cold embers. The most common mistake I see patients make is chasing perfection and then quitting entirely when they fall short. You do not need to eat all 7 of these foods every single day to benefit. Your body has redundant, overlapping defense systems. If you are consistently hitting most of these foods most of the time, you are giving your biology enormous protective support. An occasional pizza night or missed serving does not undo that. Your fortified defenses can handle it. The second most common mistake is trying to replace whole foods with supplements. You can buy lycopene capsules. You can buy EGCG extract. You can buy anthocyanin supplements. And for people who genuinely cannot access certain foods, quality supplements have a role. But a supplement gives you one isolated compound. A tomato gives you lycopene plus vitamin C, potassium, folate, and dozens of carotenoids and polyphenols that interact and enhance each other in ways we are still mapping. A kiwi gives you vitamin C plus the specific flavonoids and carotenoids that make the vitamin C work better. The whole food is consistently more powerful than any individual compound extracted from it. And finally, the mindset shift that I have seen make the biggest difference in the patients who actually stick with this long term. Stop thinking about what you have to give up. Start thinking about what you are adding. Instead of trying to eliminate every food you enjoy, focus on building in the protective foods first. A smoothie with blueberries and kiwi in the morning, green tea in the afternoon, tomato sauce with dinner a few nights a week. As these foods become habits, they naturally crowd out less helpful choices. Your body starts to feel different. Your energy shifts, and you will find yourself reaching for the foods that support your biology simply because they make you feel better. That gradual, additive approach is what I have seen work for decades. Restrictive elimination diets almost never last more than a few months. Here's the bottom line. Cancer does not have to be something that just happens to you. The patients I see who stay cancer-free and the ones who recover from cancer and stay in remission are not genetically blessed or unusually lucky. They are the people who consistently give their bodies the nutritional support needed to run the defense systems they were born with. Your immune system already knows how to find and destroy cancer cells. Your body already knows how to regulate blood vessel growth. Your cells already have repair mechanisms for broken DNA. These systems are running in you right now. The only question is whether you are fueling them or starving them. 7 foods, specific amounts, consistent habits. That is the protocol. Kiwis, 1 to 3 daily. Green tea, 3 cups daily with lemon and no dairy. Blueberries, 1 cup daily, fresh or frozen. Soy foods, 2 servings per week, minimum. Broccoli sprouts, 1/4 cup 3 to 4 times per week, lightly steamed. Cooked tomatoes, 3 servings per week with olive oil. Pomegranate, 4 ounces of pure juice or half a fresh fruit daily. These foods work through 4 distinct mechanisms: blocking tumor blood supply, activating immune cells, repairing DNA, and feeding the gut bacteria that make your immune system work at its highest capacity. They work better when combined. They work best when eaten consistently. And they are available at almost every grocery store on the planet. If this video changed how you think about what is on your plate, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 7 foods you are going to start adding first. And if you have a friend or family member dealing with cancer or worrying about their risk, please share this with them. This information should not be sitting in research papers that nobody reads. It should be in people's hands. Subscribe if you have not already. Every week I break down research like this into information you can actually use. I will see you in the next one.